Not every day, you meet a prisoner that kidnapped the warden and his mom. I'm not proud of that, but my story can help a lot of people. So he suggested I start going to the dormitories, telling my story. How you can come to prison with 7.5 years and end up with 2 life sentences just that quick. Less than a year's time.
One of two inmates who kidnapped Louisiana State Penitentiary Warden Ross Maggio and his mother during an unsuccessful escape attempt nearly a year ago has been convicted on 2 counts of aggravated kidnapping. Sentencing for 18-year-old George Gibson has been set for November 30th. Each conviction carries a mandatory prison term of life imprisonment without benefit of early release or parole. The other inmate who took part in that escape attempt was shot to death.
And you heard correctly. We are about to watch the parole hearing of a man who went into Angola at the age of 15. Now, he attempted to escape Angola with a co-defendant. They kidnapped the warden and the warden's family. And during that escape, and we'll go through all the information, he and his co-defendant were shot. Now, his co-defendant, he died in the escape attempt. And this man, he lost his arm and then spent the next 33 years in solitary confinement. You can't make it up. He had just a 7.5 year sentence when he got in, and he turned it into 2 life sentences, 1 arm, and 33 years in solitary in the dungeons of Angola. Now, we're going to watch his first chance at parole, his first opportunity for parole hearing almost 40 years later. I'll unpack it with the details of his appeal and his crime at the end.
George Gibson DOC number 97064, second class offender, parole eligibility date 2/23/2010, not eligible for good time, full term life, armed robbery, aggravated kidnapping, 2 counts. Does that sound correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, would you answer Ms. Perwise, please?
Good morning.
Good morning.
When did you find out that you will be eligible for a parole here?
In 2010.
In 2010.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. But in reading your record, it looks like you always prepare for this day.
Oh, thank you.
It really does. Call out for the record how long you've been in jail.
I was arrested at the age of 15, so I didn't get to Angola until I was 17. So I'm looking at close to 40 years.
Okay, all right. I never thought about it like that. I didn't consider that time. You never did burn out. Okay, 40 years. Call out the programs because you only been out of lockdown for 5 years. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And well, let me go back and look further back when you were 15. I read in the record where you went to Job Corps and you got sent back home.
Yes,
what
ma'am.
were you doing? What kind of, you said they just sent you back home. What were you doing?
No, they didn't just send me back home. I pretty much was misbehaving. So
yeah, that's what I want to know, the detail of the misbehaving. What kind of things were you doing?
Well, in Job Corps, if you don't want to go to school, missing the day of school, it's similar to prison. They can write you up there too.
Mm-hmm.
It's a structured system, and Job Corps is basically for kids that drop out of school. So Job Corps is a second chance.
Which you were one of them. You were one of them.
Yes, ma'am. And
I guess I'm going to be more specific. I mean, were you disrespecting staff?
No, it wasn't that.
No,
it was just adjusting. That was my first time away from home.
Okay.
And it was kind of like a slow learning in school. So when you got the Job Corps, I thought I would just be able to take my trade, but it don't work that way. You have to take both. You have to go to school. You go to school half a day. You take your trade the other half.
Oh, okay. Okay.
They worked with me. They got to the point where they would say, okay, well, Mr. Gibson, just take your trade. After you finish your trade, we're going to just work on you getting your GED.
Mm-hmm.
But I was just so confused at that age, and not seeing opportunity, even though I had been put out of school. I just didn't see the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And tolerate so much, But it was they only tolerate so much in Job Corps too. You get so many
that's true.
you don't want to go to school and forced to send you home.
Yes, right. Because they want to have time to work with the students who are there to learn.
Right.
So speaking of education, you don't have a GED, right? Is that correct?
No, ma'am. That was pretty complicated for me. But what I did do is I took the literacy program up immediately after I got out of CSAR. I felt I can pass that, which I did. It's just so complicated. I've been in the cell for 33 years. You just, I can read and write. I can function, but the GED just been a challenge for me.
Yes, sir. That's fine. That is fine, and it is for some people. And I see that you are you haven't had a write-up in since when was your last write-up?
Ooh, close to, I think 8 and 9 years ago.
Was that the one in 2014 with the cell phone?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, with the contraband for the cell phone. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I do want to tell you as a part of this process, because we all know that all things that you committed that resulted in the aggravated kidnapping, that all that's in the record.
Yes, ma'am.
Probation and parole reached out to the victim's family, and I just want you to know that they reached out to the wardens. And let me get it before I make sure I say it right. My goodness, it's not coming up right now. But you do have some law enforcement opposition. There's nothing you can do about that, but I'm just informing you of that there is some law enforcement opposition. They reached out to the warden's son, and he stated that he would be satisfied with whatever decision the parole board makes regarding you, and he had no further comments. So I just wanted you to know that.
I appreciate it.
Do you have anything to say about that? Is there anything you want to say about that?
I was hoping I can speak with the victims, but under the law, you can't contact them or write them. Several months ago, the Warden Bernard spoke with me because him and Ross Maggio are still good friends. He said that Ross Maggio stated that he wouldn't speak for me, but he wouldn't speak against me.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever the board decided, they was going to leave it in the hands of the board.
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciate that. Not speaking against me is just like speaking for me. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, that depends upon the thought pattern of the board member.
Yes, ma'am.
But yeah, some of them might see it that way, some of them not so much. Yeah, but I'll agree that is refreshing. So tell me about the mentor program. Tell me what you've been doing in mentoring.
Well, I didn't think I can be a mentor. Warden Thompson, maybe 2 years ago, decided that I should tell my story. I have a story that's not every day, you meet a prisoner that kidnapped the warden and his mom. I'm not proud of that, but my story can help a lot of people. So he suggested I start going to the dormitories, telling my story, how you can come to prison with 7.5 years and end up with 2 life sentences just that quick, less than a year's time. So that worked out pretty good. Maybe a year ago, they asked me would I be a mentor, and I thought about it and said, well, why not? Anything that can better me, that can better educate me and how to live better and help other people. I took it on. So it's been pretty good. It's been a challenge, The program, we deal with a lot of prisoners that are hooked on drugs. So it's pretty much like they're detoxing for 90 days. So you're dealing with all these different personalities and mindset. I had a chance to actually administrate the 100 hours in the drug program, and it's been a real good experience teaching people, make the right decisions in life. It hasn't been easy, but it's been real interesting,
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy
and
it.
also, you learning a little bit about what's going on the outside, aren't you? And hearing their stories.
Yes, we definitely.
Updating you on what's been going on in the 30-something years you were on lockdown.
This cycle we had more graduate than the prior cycle, so we're pretty excited about the changes. If you can change one, you're doing something. So
yes, and also too, and you multiply that by generations because it's men when they get out and start impacting their community, it multiplies, and that's really good. I read it in the record, but I want you to state it. If you were successful today, where would you live and how would you support yourself?
Well, I'm blessed to have a family to go to. My sister's Denise, and I'm real blessed to have a family to go to. There's many things I want to do. I think the main thing is just, basically to stay focused, man, and not feel sorry for yourself. I've been taking care of myself for 40 years, one arm. So if you can work for 4 cents an hour in prison, that's not a job I wouldn't work out there in society, So I got a few skills. I can paint. I love cooking candy. For some reason, I just love cleaning. So I think about cleaning businesses, So it's just stuff my mother put in me for years. That's my first job after coming out of CCR. They allowed me to work in a clinic, because I actually love cleaning, So I think whatever challenges I'm faced with out there, I'm ready for them. If you're not after 40 years of your life, you should be able to deal with anything you face with out there in society.
Okay, and where would you live?
I'm with my sister. My sister's Denise, my brother-in-law.
Okay, good. And your brother-in-law mentioned in his statement that he has a lawn care business and a power washing business.
Yes.
He's gonna let you work in that some.
Yes,
I realize you're nervous, so you can't say all of that that's in the record.
Yeah.
Okay. And I saw in the record that you have two uncles. Your biological father, your stepfather, and 2 uncles spent time in Angola.
Yes, ma'am.
Were y'all ever there at the same time?
No, I didn't meet my father. My biological father was never part of my life. I met him on his armed robbery. I committed an armed robbery and went to California. I always knew he was in California. California, and was arrested in the bus station. And about 2 nights later, in the juvenile detention center, my sisters that was actually staying in California with their father, biological father, contacted him. So that was the first time I met him. My stepfather was a part of my life. He had been in Angola. My stepfather, my biological father had been in Angola, which I never met but once. My stepfather, Robert Bradley, who had been to Angola and got out in the 60s and never returned. He was the man that was father that was in my life,
Okay.
He tried, but it didn't work. He tried to keep it out, yeah, it didn't work.
He did.
I would hear the same story. I'm not gonna let you come to Angola. I'll make the mistake I made, I still remember those words today. But it didn't work. I think sometimes it's just some of us as humans, we have to go through the fire, I had 2 uncles that had been in Angola who would preach to me every single day, by doing right, being a man and staying out of trouble, which is my Uncle Richard, who had come to Angola as a young man, who got out and never come back. My other uncle I never met, his name was Joe Billy. I never had a chance to really talk to him. He can share his experience with me. But, I had male figures there that had experienced this madness, and was trying their best to keep me from coming. And with all that, I still end up here, So.
All right, sir, that's all I had. Thank you for answering my questions.
Thank you.
All right, Jones.
Mr. Chairman, and good interview by Ms. Wise. I don't have any questions.
Right, great. Thank you. How long have you been down?
Close to 40 years. I think a little over 40 years.
You were in lockdown for how long?
Oh, a little over 33 years.
And you were how old when you came to jail?
It was 15.
16?
15 years old.
And your escape was when you were 16?
No, my escape was actually when I was 17.
17. All right, thank you. We'll now hear from Ms. Denise.
Hello, my name is Hazel Denise, and I am George's sister, and I represent the family. Before I begin, I would like to take this opportunity to humbly thank the parole board and all of the staff and administration in attendance today for affording our family a chance to speak on George's behalf. We truly appreciate your time and patience. Prior to his incarceration, my brother George was only a child who thought, behaved, and spoke as a child. However, while we do not take this lightly, the commission of any acts that brought him to be in this present circumstance, we know and believe with great conviction in our hearts that he is a changed man who through personal and spiritual growth, restitution, and full rehabilitation is ready to re-enter into society with the guidance and support of his huge loving family, friends, and support system. With our dedication and assistance, we know we can help George to be a family-oriented person that he has always been and to become a contributing member of our community. Our family unit has been incomplete without his physical presence, and we are eager to welcome him home with open, warm, receptive, and loving arms. Lastly, we are a God-fearing family who believes in forgiveness. And today, on behalf of our family, I beg that you also find it in your hearts to forgive. I speak for our entire family when I say we beg of this parole board to give George grace, mercy, and grant him parole. Again, we thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Denise. Warden, would you like to make a comment, have some input?
Yes, sir. I can tell you that I've known George for over 20 years. And I met him in CCR, which he stayed for the time until he got out 4 or 5 years ago. And like he said, he loves cleaning because his cell always stayed clean. He's always been respectful. I don't know, I wasn't here at the time when the incident happened, of course, way back when. Now he is a Class B trustee, and that was with kind of like with the board, Warden Maggio. We did reach out, and he wasn't for it, but he wasn't against it. Told us to do whatever we thought was right, and we did. Since I've known him, he's only had 3 small write-ups. And again, he's taken it. Me and him have talked in the past about it, and he's always been sincere about what he did and sorry for what he did. And we talked about him getting out years ago, and when we did let him out, we discussed what he's doing now, something like that, going out and passing his story on to others so they don't make the same mistakes. He's taking it and run with it and doing a really good job. I talked to him the other day in the dorm, and he loves it down there, and he's taking care of it and passing his story on so they don't. So he's done what he's supposed to as far as the prison goes and in prison. And when given the opportunity, he did return back to that cell block, which says a lot.
All right, thank you. All right, Mr. Gibson, would you like to make a statement on your behalf?
I appreciate this opportunity. I know it's not an easy decision to be in a position where you have to judge whether or not you're going to give a man his freedom and let him stay in prison for the rest of his life. So, first and foremost, I appreciate it. I appreciate my family being there. I want to say, my 40 years in prison, it hasn't been easy, man. But I'm not the same. I'm not that child that come to prison years ago. I'm 55 years old, and every day I wake up, I try to strive to be better than what I was the day before. I know that I'm a changed man. I'm remorseful for the Warden's family. I often think about what I would have done if someone would have invaded my home, and kidnapped me and my mother. How would I have handled this? So there's no ill feelings towards the Warden. I think protecting his mother and protecting himself is what he done, what he was supposed to do. Is what I would have done as a man. I've learned a lot here. I've learned a lot, and I know I'm different. I know I've changed, and I just want the opportunity to show that I've changed. All you know about me is what I present, my records. You don't know whether I'm faking it to make it. The only truly way you know if I'm changed is if I'm given that chance to re-enter society to show that I've changed. We can say many things out of our mouth, but I like for you to take my records in consideration. I like for you to realize that way before there was a such thing as a Graham bill, I just stopped getting these crazy write-ups. You know, you grow. You either lose your mind or you grow in here. There's no in between. You know, even in that cell for 33 years, I would get up and do something different to keep my sanity. You know, and when they let me out of the cell, as the warden said, I took full advantage of that, and I haven't stopped. I get up every day just to, you know, to be better than I was the next day. Is it easy in this environment? No, but you can do it if you really want it. You know, if you really want to change, you can change. You know, so I just asked the board to take consideration my records, and you know, realize that way before this grand bill came along, I know I was a changed man. You know, and I continue. If I'm given that opportunity to get back into society, I'm not going to stop. I won't disappoint you.
Thank you. Before we hear from Ms. Bowman, Warden, I forgot, is there any opportunity for him to make Class A trustee? What's your feelings on that?
I don't see what, let me look, see how long he's been a Class B. And usually it goes by, the time that he's been a Class B trustee, and as far as his record, as far as conduct goes, is perfectly fine. He's been just a little over 2 years now. Of course, we also take into consideration the charges and the kidnap charges, but we look past those sometimes depending on what they're doing. But it's just the time that he is as a Class B. But I don't see why he couldn't be considered in the future.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Warden. Ms. Bowman, would you like to wrap it up?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Kelsey. Mr. Kelsey and Ms. Wise, it's nice to see you again. Mr. Jones, this is the first time I've appeared before you. So just to introduce myself, my name is Allison Molman. I'm an attorney with the Equal Justice Initiative. Our office is based in Alabama, but we were part of the Supreme Court's litigation of the Graham case in 2010. And after that, we became involved in dozens of non-homicide juvenile cases in Louisiana. And so we've been working with Mr. Gibson for over a decade. We've seen his tremendous growth. What the United States Supreme Court said in the Graham case is for juvenile non-homicide offenders like Mr. Gibson, they should be given a meaningful opportunity for parole based on their demonstrated maturity and rehabilitation. We've talked a lot about Mr. Gibson's growth and rehabilitation today, so I won't rehash that. But what I wanted to highlight, and he did this a little bit in his closing, is that he started making these changes long before he had any hope of ever being released from prison. He didn't do this because he ever thought he would have the opportunity to be before you all today. He did it because it was the right thing. And it was because he grew up and became a man and didn't want to be that child any longer. And what I think really speaks to who he is as a man is his mentorship and what he's done to give back to others. For someone at 17 who was taken under his wing by an adult man who did harm in this offense, it would have been easy for him to become that man, to take people under his wing to do harm. But he's done the exact opposite of that. He's become a mentor, a leader, and he really wants to continue that work if he's given an opportunity to go on parole. The last point I just wanted to highlight is that he has an immensely supportive family. We actually had too many people that wanted to join the hearing today, but Denise and her husband, who was a former retired law enforcement officer, they own their home, they've got a business, they're prepared to get him to work. And he's also going to have the support of his legal team at EJI. We will make sure that he meets the parole requirements, checking in and doing all of that. And so I always tell our clients, you know, you're stuck with me forever. Mr. Gibson will have the support of EJI for as long as he needs us, and so will his family. I thank you all for the opportunity today. He's been waiting, 10 years for this parole hearing, but we really encourage our clients to only go up when they're ready. And so he did the programs. He'd taken this time to get his Class B trustee status, and he knew and we knew that he was ready at this point. And so we hope you will give him that opportunity to prove that he's exactly the type of person that the Supreme Court was envisioning when they said that juvenile non-homicide offenders should get a second chance. Thank you.
At this moment, do you think he's received a meaningful opportunity today?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Kelsey. I appreciate that.
Thank you. All right. I think we have Ms. Pearl.
Yes, sir. I recommend executive session to discuss confidential matters related to this case.
We have a motion for executive session. We have a second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Gibson, I just want to commend you on the work. I really had a lot of interesting reading last night. Like you said, from 15 on up to the two who you are today. And I want to say that I was looking forward to meeting you, and you did not disappoint. My vote is to grant. One of the main reasons for me is the lack of victim opposition and the positive family support that you have. And also the comments from the warden, there were positive comments from the warden, and you have a good transition plan. So my vote will be to grant to your parents, and that you do at least 10 hours a month of community service, like you said, doing talks to wherever you can, whatever the probation parole officer will see, because you're right, you have a story that needs to be told. But my vote is to grant, sir. Good luck to you.
Mr. Jones?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Gibson?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes, sir.
I commend you for all the good work you've done and what you've been able to do since, especially since you've been out of lockdown. You've come a long ways. You did well. And Ms. Moldman, if I ever need somebody to speak on my behalf, I'd be trying to look you up. You did a great job. You and the family members both speaking. Mr. Gibson, you have a great family here and a good support team. But I want to see a little more. I want to see a little more. I want to see you maybe try to get that trustee A status and some more programs. And when you able to write back and apply back to us, do that. And if I'm on that panel, I may look at it much differently next time. But my vote today will be to deny.
Yeah, one vote to deny, one vote to grant. None of these cases are easy for us. We always try to make the best decision. We always read them. I looked over your case over and over again, and we're human. So my feelings were one way when I read it. I'll be honest with you. And then I heard from you, and really was impressed with what I heard and what I saw. And I think the progress that you're making. Again, this is it's never easy. I know you've been working hard. You'll continue to fight hard. Today, I would have voted to grant your parole because of the work you've done, because of the positive comments of the warden, all the things that you've done. But I do understand Mr. Jones's position as well. But that would be my vote today would be, so you have 2 votes to grant and 1 to deny, but unfortunately today your parole's been denied. But keep working hard, and I think you're right there. I mean, as close as you can be. But just keep doing the right thing and work hard to get that Class A, and that'll really mean a lot. But today your parole's been denied. Thank y'all.
All right, and he wrote back in, and we're about to go and watch his next parole hearing. So don't go anywhere, because we are going to see his next chance at parole. But before we do, we're going to do 2 things. 1, I'm going to get a few things off my chest about this hearing. And 2, we're going to briefly go over the facts of the case, what he actually did, because God knows when Miss Wise does her interviews, you don't get much out of it, do you? It's okay. Why Victor Jones would deny is mind-blowing to me. Now, some of you might be confusing him with Jim Wise. He's not Jim Wise. Jim Wise is worse than Victor Jones, but they both make, I think, boneheaded. This guy has been locked up for so bloody long. He was on lockdown for 33 years, almost 40 years. He was thrown into Angola at the age of 15. Can you imagine being a 15-year-old boy in Angola and not, and remember, he escaped with a co-defendant. The idea that you can't have the concept that he was probably coerced or manipulated or something into even being a part of that escape, and then to say, yeah, you need some more time, is crazy to me. If there's anyone that should get, he has served his time, dude. And to just like nonchalant, I want to shoot some more time, I want to shoot some more time. So anyways, he gets like 3 years later, he shows up for parole here. We're going to watch it, but let me go over this because this is crazy to me. This entire case is, now this was decided in 1984. You can't even imagine this appeal. And thank you, Sir Richard, for finding that newsreel, that time capsule I don't know how he found that one out of covering this case, but okay. On the evening of October 30th, 1982, Ross Maggio Jr., Warden of Louisiana, Angola, was with his wife, son, and parents at his home on the grounds. You know, his home is on the grounds. Angola is like a city, so you have everything there: barracks, homes, all that stuff. They have a golf course in Angola, by the way. His mother, Doris Maggio, for the guards, not for the inmates, walked outside and was grabbed by two inmates. So the Angola's mother is grabbed. I mean, you do get that you're gonna get everything thrown at you, and especially in 1980 for doing this. But like 32 years of solitary after you lose an arm. I mean, come on. Okay, including the defendant armed with a knife and a screwdriver. They forced Mrs. Maggio into the house. Once inside the den, the inmates confronted the warden and his father and forced them on the floor. At this point, the warden's wife came to the area armed with a gun. So warden's wife, she ain't messing around. The warden ordered her to leave the house. She fled to report the incident. So the warden's like, no, put the wife, don't put the gun down. I'll take care of it. The inmates then forced the warden and his parents out of the house and into the warden's truck. There was not enough room for all five in the truck, so the warden's father was released. They forced Mrs. Maggio onto the floor of the truck under the dash. The warden was told to get into the driver's seat and drive. So the warden's driving, and his mom is on the floor by the dash. Inmate Charles Ranker sat next to the passenger's door, and the defendant sat between the warden and Ranker. The men threatened the warden and his mother with death if they did not get them out the front gate. The warden testified that Ranker told him that he, Maggio, was going to get them out of prison by driving the truck out the front gate. The warden attempted to alert prison security with his two-way radio, so he had his two-way radio in the truck there. While driving towards the front gate, the defendant knocked the microphone out of the warden's hand. When they approached the front gate, the warden rammed a pole near the fence. So the warden was not leaving that fence. So he rams his truck, jumps out of the truck, obtains a gun, shot through the windshield. Meanwhile, the warden's mother's in there. This whole thing is like insane. I mean, he did what he had to do. He saved his family's life. I mean, this warden, if you imagine, he got his wife out of there, he got his dad out of there, then his mother's there, and he slams the truck, gets a gun. I don't know if there's a gun lying around. Shoots through the windshield at Ranker, who is still in the truck, with Mrs. Maggio, his mom. The warden then rescued his mother from the truck. The defendant was also shot and injured. Ranker died as a result of the shooting. So he loses an arm. His co-defendant is killed. Superman Warden, who's like a cheesy superhero flick. This is like, you know, one of those like movies, those movie scenes out of Hollywood. Is the hero of the day. And as you know, of course, that warden then threw him into the dungeons of Angola, which is what you'd expect. He would have had his arm amputated. I doubt they used the necessary anesthetics when they amputated his arm. I'm just speculating. I don't know. I doubt he got the best medical care or pain relievers. One might even wonder if he would have needed his arm amputated. This is 1980s Angola, and he just kidnapped the warden's family. And then at 15, I guess he was 17 years old by the time this happened, he would have been thrown in. Think about the hell that he would have lived. This would have been torture. The first days and weeks and months of sitting there with the regret and the pain and the phantom pain and not giving you probably even the best food and water. And I look, you know, you don't kidnap the warden and do this in 1980s Angola and expect anything different. The whole thing was insane. I'm just putting you in the picture. I would not wish what he probably experienced on my worst enemies. But it's all these years later, and he's not bitter. and he's not like, I don't know, he doesn't give me any of the appearances of someone who lived through that type of hell. But he was denied, and I don't get it. But we're going to fast forward a couple of years to his next parole hearing. So that one took place on 2021, and now we're going to go fast forward to 2023. And let's listen to this, and I'll unpack it with more details at the end.
So I'm going to go ahead and enter some information into the record, Mr. Gibson. This is the matter of George T. Gibson, DOC number 97064. He's classified as a second felony offender. He had a parole eligibility date initially of February the 23rd of 2010. He is serving a life sentence on the charges of armed robbery and 2 counts of aggravated kidnapping. Mr. Gibson, does that information sound correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Your case has been assigned to Ms. Pearl Wise. She will begin our interview process. Would you please answer any questions she might have, Ms. Wise?
Good morning.
Good morning.
We meet again. I was on your last panel. When was it?
2020.
Yeah, February 10th of 21. You did a vote of 2 to 1. And I'm just stating this for the record. Then in June of 2023, you applied for a rehearing, and it was granted. It was unanimous, vote of 3 to set for your hearing. So here we are today. So call out for the record. How long you've been in jail?
Over 42 years now.
42 years. And how old are you today?
58.
You're 58 years of age. Okay. What do you do every day at the prison?
Well, I was mentoring prior to 2 years ago. I work in the doctor's clinic.
Okay. You working it? Okay. Because on the last hearing, we had said something about reapply after you get Class A trustee status and you take more programs. So what have you done about that from the last 21 hearing? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I took up moral compass and I got my Class A trustee status.
Okay, good. When did you get your Class A trustee status?
I want to say maybe a year ago, maybe a little over a year ago.
Oh, good, good, good. I'm glad to hear that. Ms. Wise. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
He got his Class A trustee status in February 26th of 2001.
Okay.
All right, right after the hearing. Almost right after the hearing. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, you cutting yourself short there.
Yeah.
You was cutting yourself real short. Yeah, because you actually got it. The hearing was what, January 21st, and you February 26th right after, and you've maintained it. That's good to hear. So you work in the tell us what you do every day now in the doctor's office, you said.
What was ever required of me, you know, I was mentoring. I kind of like, I got bored with that. In prison, when you're a trustee, you can pretty much go from one job to another, you know, be qualified. So I enjoy I enjoy working in the doctor's clinic more than I did mentoring. So I went back to the doctor's clinic.
Okay.
I was working in the doctor's clinic before I became a mentor. So after I got tired of mentoring, I went back to the doctor's clinic.
Okay, all right. We're not gonna speak about those knuckleheads and how challenging it was to mentor. We're not gonna speak about that. But like we put it, you just went back to your job. I'm just gonna leave that right there. Just speak a little briefly about your health conditions. What is your mobility like these days?
I found out I was a diabetic right after the hearing. I had diabetes, and I've been doing my best to maintain and manage that. It's kind of hard in prison, you know, make sure you eat what's right. That's the challenge, making sure I eat correctly. So I had good news a couple of months ago. My A1C was under 7, so I guess that's pretty good. So it's just just maintain, you know, try to eat healthy and stay positive.
Okay. All right,
that's
good.
what.
So that's good to hear. So you are mobile, right? You can walk and everything.
Yes. Oh, yes, ma'am. Yes.
Good. I'm just trying to get a. And so, if you were successful today, tell us what your plans are.
Well, I'm going to the parole project. That's the first step. I was glad I was accepted. I was pretty positive, you know, after you enter back into society. 43 years, I have to really get accustomed to living back in society, My second plan is once I'm released from the parole project is stay with my sister Denise and my brother-in-law. They have a job lined up for me. Just take it one day at a time. I'm just blessed to have family that's willing to help me transition back into society.
Very good, very good. I want to say for the record that your victim in this case is unopposed. Your victim is stating that whatever the parole board decides, they'll be okay with it. So your victim, you don't have any victim opposition, and the other victims in the other cases we don't have any, they're deceased, or we don't have any comments from any of the other relatives. So it's safe to say you have no express opposition from victims in your case, and I'll just say that for the record. I think that's all I want to ask you, because and you do have a good institutional record, and you had outstanding comments from staff. That was really good to hear the things that they had to say about how well what kind of person you are. All right, so Warden, what can you share with us about Mr. Gibson?
Basically, everything that Mr. Gibson told you was true about his mentoring, and he went back to the doctor's clinic to do work in the doctor's clinic. He did finish more Compass on August of 2022, and also regained his minimum. Well, he was a minimum A trustee. Other than that, I don't have anything else to add. Besides, his disciplinary report is real good. He hadn't had a report since 2014.
All right, you said 2014, or was it?
Yeah.
It was 14? Yeah.
2014.
That's it. All right, thank you. I forgot to mention that. Thank you for mentioning. All right, that's all I had, Chairman.
Thank you very much. You have a question, Mr. Good morning, Mr. Gibson. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good.
I see the last class that you completed was the moral compass.
Yes, sir.
Tell me what you got out of that particular program.
Well, they passed a ruling. I don't know when it came down. Even though I was a mentor before, you had to complete moral compass to be qualified as a mentor. The DOC wanted us to take moral compass. And so even though I wasn't mentoring anymore, I decided to take the class in case if I decided I wanted to mentor again, I would be qualified to teach it. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I learned a lot from it. Pretty much a lot of the stuff that they taught me, I was actually doing it before I became qualified. Sometimes it's stressful helping others. When I was a mentor, I was in charge of 5 people. And you have to, monitor them. It's like having 5 grown kids. And I've done it for close to 2 years. So that's why I took up moral compass. If I ever decided that I wanted to mentor again, I would be qualified to actually mentor. So the DOC made it mandatory that you have to complete moral compass to be a mentor. All mentors had to go through it in prison.
It would tell me what you got out of the program.
Just basically learning to communicate with people. Solving problems, teaching them how to think. How to think before you act. I have as you know, my case, I come to prison with only 7.5 years. So I pretty much went from 7.5 years to 2 life sentences. So I use my case a lot and guiding and mentoring other kids and that come to prison. They're so young. Some of them are 17 and 18 years old, the same age I was. So I just brushed up on my skills of being able to communicate with people and teaching things, sharing my own story, about how I made bad decisions, and I regret it. I've done 33 years in the cell from that one bad decision. I often think about what I could have accomplished, or I'd have just done this 7.5 years and completed my sentence and went home. So
thank you, sir. I appreciate your response.
Thank you, Mr. Roche. Now we'll hear from your supporters, Mr. Andrew Hunley. Mr. Hunley, good morning.
Good morning, honorable board members. Representing Parole Project today and informing the board that Mr. Gibson continues to be a client of our program.
Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am. How are you? If you would please introduce yourself and tell us what you'd like us to know about your uncle.
Yes, my name is Kalila Ramirez, and I live in California. When I last saw my uncle, I was 5 years old, and I have been to Angola to visit him one time since then, but I'm 46 now, and I have 2 grown daughters of my own who he's never met. So what I want to say is, in terms of his life sentence, he has served life. There's been people in our family that have lived and died. You live their whole lives and they never got to meet him. He has nieces, nephews, grandnieces, lifetimes that are passing by without him. We kind of need him out here. So yeah, if you guys could just consider releasing him today, that would be amazing. It would be a dream come true for our family. He has been a model inmate. Not sure how he's kept a positive attitude all this time in the face of time served, in the face of injustice, and everything that he's been through. So yeah, we're ready to have him out here. I think he would be much better off continuing his life. I think he served his time and we can move on from where we are right now.
Thank you very much, ma'am. We do appreciate your comments. Now we hear from Ms. Lindia Blunt.
Good morning. My name is Julia Blunt. I'm a retired Navy veteran, and I'm here to speak on behalf of my cousin George. I prepared a statement. On behalf of the family of George Gibson, I would first like to thank God for this day, as it is one we have been eagerly anticipating for quite some time now. We would like to express our most sincere gratitude to the administration, officials, officers of the parole board, and staff in attendance today. And I personally would like to show my gratitude and love to my family members attending virtually via Zoom. Upon completion of his parole program, should George be granted parole, George has a stable home to live in with his sister Denise and her husband David, a retired sheriff's deputy. Additionally, George will have gainful employment with his brother-in-law's lawn service company immediately upon coming home from the program. George, as you can see, has a huge support system, including but not limited to his siblings, aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews, cousins, and close family and friends. We all miss George dearly, and we cannot wait to help him successfully transition into a contributing member of society. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Mr. Gibson, is there anything you'd like to say to the board before we turn it over to your lawyer to close it out?
Yes, first and foremost, thank you for a second hearing. And I know this is not an easy decision to make when it comes to deciding whether or not you're going to let a man that's been in prison for 42 years back into society. I just like you to take into consideration that, you know, I'm not that same person. I regret the crime I committed. You know, I'm very remorseful for it. You know, you have to be the 42 years of my life in this prison. You know, I regret my crime. You know, I wish I would have just took the time out to just think before I act. I regret hurting my victims. You know, my case was pretty big, kidnapping the warden and his mother. You know, I often think about if that's what would have been my mother. You know, what I have done. So I'd like the board to know if you grant me my freedom, I'm not leaving anything behind. I'm not leaving here bitter, feeling like the world owed me anything. You know, I think one of the reasons I was able to navigate 43 years is accepting responsibility, you know, that I put myself here. You know, many times you hear about cases like mine, as you can see, and you feel, well, we was raised wrong, you know. I know right from wrong. You know, sometimes as a child, or you make decisions, you make bad decisions that can cost you. Some children can make decisions and they recover from those bad decisions. I was just one, that statistic that made a bad choice. Went from 7.5 years to 2 life sentences. I regret it. You know, I regret it. I regret hurting my family as well as myself, the victim's family. I'd like you to take in consideration, even though you personally don't know me, I'd like you to look at my prison record. You know, it wasn't, you know, I didn't just wake up one morning and say, well, you know, they got a ground bill coming up. Let me stop getting in trouble because I'm gonna make parole. You know, you get tired of it. You know, to where you grow up and you stop getting in trouble. You know, you stop and you learn to think. You know, before you act and make righteous decisions. I feel pretty good about myself. You know, how far I came. I don't know if you understand. Being a trustee is not just being able to be with civilians out at rodeo, but we're held accountable. You know, we're role models for prisoners, you know, for other prisoners, for other younger prisoners, to just to learn how to do time. You know, just because you have a life sentence doesn't mean you have to stop educating yourself and stop growing. You know, and I like the board to take that in consideration. The fact before I had any chance of getting out of prison, my behavior changed because I'm a changed man. I'm not that 15-year-old kid who come to prison, you know, 42 years ago. I'm 58 years old. I'm ready for society. I know they tell you about the ones that come back. I'm not coming back. I like the board to take that in consideration. I like that opportunity to be with my family again and just to, you know, live the rest of my life in society, whatever God has planned for me. That's all I have to say. Thank you for this hearing.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your comments. Mr. McDonald, would please.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on Mr. Gibson's behalf. The Equal Justice Initiative has represented Mr. Gibson for nearly 13 years. This is his second time before this honorable committee. As this board is aware, in 1982, at age 17, Mr. Gibson committed a serious offense for which he takes full responsibility. He, as you can tell, understands the recklessness of his actions and the harm that he caused to the victims, their family, and the whole community. And today at 58, Mr. Gibson is a completely different person from the boy he was 42 years ago. He has matured into a deeply remorseful man who has dedicated his adult life to atoning for his past and rehabilitating himself. Mr. Gibson's demonstrated rehabilitation makes him exactly the type of person the U.S. Supreme Court had in mind when it required that juvenile non-homicide offenders be given a meaningful opportunity to obtain release. He has spent decades reflecting on his crime and participating in available programming at Angola to better himself. At his previous parole hearing in February 2021, where he had 2 votes to grant, the board recognized and commended Mr. Gibson for his commitment to self-improvement. Years before Graham, as Mr. Gibson was saying, he taught himself how to read, which is really remarkable given how challenging it was for him in school before his offense. And his newfound literacy at Angola really expanded his consciousness and his faith. As Mr. Gibson has told me personally, you do better when you know better. So as his literacy improved, his way of thinking changed, his prison record improved. In fact, by 2000, Mr. Gibson had earned his ministry credentials and had continued to participate in religious programming and other programs that really wouldn't be possible if he hadn't committed himself in this way to educating himself and to bettering himself. As you'll see, he's completed the 100-hour reentry program, anger management, the literacy program, among other programs. And as a result of his clear rehabilitation and demonstrated leadership, Mr. Gibson was appointed to serve as a mentor in the behavior management program at Camp C. And in that role, he helped to support a cohort of men and really set an example for them and explain how they can turn their lives around after making really terrible decisions like he did when he was a child. Despite challenges in recent years, as Mr. Hundley has alluded to, Mr. Gibson's record has only improved. As this board knows, it's not unusual for someone's prison record to decline or worsen after a parole denial. But in Mr. Gibson's case, his record only improved. He finished the moral compass course, he maintained his near decade-long clear disciplinary record, and he earned his Class A trustee status, which speaks not only to the high level of trust that the prison administration has in Mr. Gibson, but also to the tools he has developed to cope with stressful moments in his life. His home plan is with the Louisiana Parole Project, who will provide wraparound services. And once a transition is deemed appropriate, he will go to live with his sister and her husband, who's former law enforcement in Terrebonne Parish. And of course, Mr. Gibson will have the continued support of EJI if he is granted parole. Mr. Gibson's record speaks volumes about his maturity, his remorse, and rehabilitation. So today, we respectfully ask this board to consider all of these factors and grant parole subject to any conditions deemed appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McDonald. We appreciate your comments. Ms. Wise?
Yes.
Board ready to vote?
Yes, ready to vote. It's always a pleasure for me when I'm able to vote the same thing a second time. And again, that speaks to your good, how well you've done. You did a great harm. And you acknowledge that. You healed and you've been helping others. And that's all we can ask. So my vote is to grant for the same reasons I granted before. You lack victim opposition, and all of that has been expressed. Outstanding family support on Zoom and at the institution. The positive Warden's comments and your excellent transition plan. Best wishes to you, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Wise. Mr.
Special conditions, my only special condition is probably about 8 months after release, they started doing some community service. You can figure out what you want to do. You want to, do testimonies and whatever, but just give back to the community in some way.
Yes, ma'am.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Gibson,
Yes, sir.
after serving 8 years on this board, I can't say that I've had an enjoyable time. I enjoyed your interview. You were honest, you were sincere, and that's very refreshing.
Thank you.
Mr. Gibson, I see what I'm looking for. I'm looking for full maturity and rehabilitation. And I saw that this morning. So based on the length of incarceration, positive remarks by Warden Ambo, excellent transition plan, family support, my vote is to grant your early release.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to put a curfew on you from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. And I want you to do that community service that Ms. Wise was talking about with disadvantaged youth.
Sure.
You are a teenager when you were arrested, and you have a story to tell. How to tell your story and lead the young people in the right direction.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Rochette. Mr. Gibson, I echo everything that my colleagues have said. I really did enjoy your interview. If I were sitting there, I probably would be a bitter man. You're not. And I think that's critical. That's very important. And you have a tremendous story to tell young people today. We live in a horrible world today. It's worse than it was when you were out. I do believe that you are in a position to do a lot of good. And my vote today would be to grant as well with all of the same conditions. Good luck to you, sir. And good luck.
Thank you.
And there you have it. They granted parole. I'll say thank God. And as far as, well, as the data shows, he is still out. He has not gotten back in trouble. So thank goodness for that. For those of you who may have jumped to the end, I see that sometimes you guys jump to the end for the unpacking. I did the detailed unpacking in the middle, so you can go back there. I'm not going to rehash it, except of course he initially got locked up for an armed robbery. It was a 7-year sentence. He was about 2 years into that sentence, maybe more, because who knows how much time he had served in jail before he ends up trying to do this jailbreak, this insane jailbreak. Now, he did it with his co-defendant, but like as he said, he turned a 7.5-year sentence into 2 life sentences. But not just that, he lost an arm, and not just that, but he spent 33 years in lockdown, in solitary confinement. And it just blows my mind that he sits there and he just seems to be the persona of a humble man. You didn't sense, you got some sense of frustration in his relatives. I think it was his niece. He wasn't sharing that outwardly. I know I'd be bitter. Even if it is what it is. You kidnapped the warden in the 80s in Angola. You probably are lucky that you even got out alive, but you can only imagine the hell. I can't get over it. I know I keep repeating it, but I can't get over thinking about what it must have been like when the warden. So he goes into the warden's home. He kidnaps him with his father and his mother. The warden's wife says, "Not in my house," gets a shotgun. The warden says, "No, this is going to be messy. I'm going to get, killed in the process. Just drop the shotgun, honey. Go get help." She does that. They then they can't get the warden's father. They can't all fit in the truck, so they let his father go, but they keep his mother. They think she's the best. She's the best, I guess, card that they're holding. They think the warden's not going to do anything funny. For some reason, they have the warden drive the truck, which seems pretty stupid, right? From their perspective. Now, I guess they just didn't know how to drive. I mean, you have one who was 15 when he got in there. The other guy, who knows what his story is, but I'm guessing they had no idea how to drive. Or maybe they were going to have the warden. Probably what it was is they thought the warden would tell the gatekeeper as they were leaving, because there's probably a guard there, right? So they would have needed the warden to say, "Oh, nothing to see here. Everything's okay. Let us through," right? That's probably what they're telling the warden to say. The warden instead crashes into probably right before he goes, he crashes into the fence. They weren't expecting it. He jumps out, grabs a gun, probably right from the guard house there. I'm sure their guards are like, have no idea what's going on. What's happening there? He goes and kills the older man, shoots. I mean, he was like a cowboy out of the wild, wild west, boom, boom, with his mother there. The pressure of that, the adrenaline rush of that. Then they're left with this kid who knows what happened at that point. Angola has their own medical ward. I doubt they took him to another hospital. They had the Angola doctor working on him. I'm sure they weren't using white glove service. Maybe they forgot to give him the painkillers when they cut his arm off. I'm only speculating, but imagining that it would have been hell. I even speculated to know if he even needed his arm amputated, or they're just like, eh. And then he would have had to have recovered in the dungeons of Angola as this kid without an arm, I imagine, again, without painkillers, and just living in his regret. And remember, he only had a 7.5-year sentence. He went into Angola at 15, depending on how long it took, for how long he sat in jail until that sentencing. But even then, he would have had at most like 5 years left on his sentence. And now here he is. You're going to do 2 life sentences. You're going to spend 33 years alone in lockdown, and it is hell in there. And it was even more hellish in the 80s. And then he comes out and he just seems like a man of I would love to sit with him and like hear him just say his stories. He's the kind of guy that really, you know, they should interview. There are a couple of places out there that interview inmates. They don't interview so much post inmates, but they exist. I don't know. Someone should do it. I would love to hear this man share stories. I can only imagine what he can tell us. And I don't have much else to add. I know that, see, we're doing this series because of the recent jail outbreaks that's happened in Louisiana with 10 escaping. Then we had an 11th escape. 5 from the 10 were captured. That 11th was recaptured. But we're doing a whole segment on all these escapees. There are so many of them. We created a new playlist. It's called Jailbreak Louisiana. So you can go check it out. But we're covering the parole hearings that have involved escapees. This one's one of the more dramatic ones. We covered one the other day in the live stream of someone who escaped Angola. Actually, also similar story. He was only 15 years old when he escaped Angola. 15. Putting a 15-year-old in Angola is mind-boggling to me. And he escaped to Illinois. And then he was only caught 10 years later when he applied to be a Chicago police officer. It showed up that he was wanted, and then they sent him back to Angola. That was a crazy story. So check the live stream if you want to see that one. But anyways, I'll leave you with the final words of wisdom from our friend. And with that, I'll let you go.
You get tired of it, you know, to where you grow up and you stop getting in trouble. You know, you stop and you learn to think, you know, before you act and make righteous decisions. I feel pretty good about myself, you know, how far I done came. I don't know if you understand, being a trustee is not just being able to be with civilians out at rodeo, but we're held accountable. You know, we're role models for prisoners, you know, for other prisoners, for other younger prisoners, to just to learn how to do time. You know, just because you have a life sentence doesn't mean you have to stop educating yourself and stop growing. You know, and I like the board to take that in consideration. The fact, before I had any chance of getting out of prison, my behavior changed because I'm a changed man. I'm not that 15-year-old kid who come to prison, you know, 42 years ago. I'm 58 years old. I'm ready for society. I know they tell you about the ones that come back. I'm not coming back. I like the board to take that in consideration. I like that opportunity to be with my family again and just to, you know, live the rest of my life in society, whatever God has planned for me. That's all I have to say. Thank you for this hearing.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your comments.